In this particular case, the subject matter is red light cameras. Should we have them? Should we not? To discuss the issue, on the pro side, we are going to have Mr. Charlie Parker. Charlie Parker moved to North Arlington in 1980. Just a moment. Charlie, your bio is sitting in the middle of my desk where I printed it and left it before coming up. He flew as an airline captain for TWA and American Airlines for 32 years, flying missions in Asia, the Persian Gulf, and in the metro area as commander of the Navy following 9/11. He became a federal flight deck officer and armed pilot for U.S. Immigration and Customs. Charlie has been involved in the representation process for the past 16 years, including chairman of the Dispute Resolution Committee and as secretary-treasurer of the Pilots Union, first elected to the Arlington City Council in 2012. Charlie currently represents District 1 and sits on the Community Neighborhood Development and Regional Policy, Municipal Infrastructure and Policy Council committees. They've been married to Jackie, who is a native from Texas, Corpus Christi, for 40 years. They have 2 children, born and raised in Arlington. Charlie Parker, would you please come forward and take this first? Faith Bussey is a wife, homeschooling mother. Careful, people. 3 adorable children. I've been told they're absolutely adorable children. A Republican precinct chair, a member of the Arlington Tea Party, and a member of the AISD Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, and a local activist. She has been involved at the local level for a little over 2 years and has worked to keep people informed and engaged in the process. Her group, Citizens for Better Arlington, successfully brought people together from all sides of the Republican spectrum in order to gather enough signatures to ban the red light cameras. Faith Bussey, would you please come forward? Now, what we're going to do here is verify. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Hit that share thing.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
The share thing?
Now, as per the original agreement that all parties involved have agreed to, we are going to begin with a 4-minute opening statement. I was going to ask you before, does it matter who goes first? I did not. Ladies first. Faith?
Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited about this. Okay, the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the mantra of safety that we've been hearing from the beginning of this petition drive that we've been doing. And the problem with this mantra of safety is that it's not believable. Okay? Why? Because our city has refused to do the basic due diligence to make sure that these red light cameras are put in the proper intersections. The current state law requires a traffic engineering study, and the purpose of a traffic engineering study is to make sure that the cameras are a last resort, that you look at everything in an intersection. You look at the timing of the yellow light, you look at the timing and the synchronization of the red lights, you look at weather patterns, traffic patterns, and you do everything you can to make the intersection safer, and then if there's nothing else you can do, then you put the camera in. And when I first started learning about this red light camera stuff, I put in a FOIA request to the city of Arlington to find out if I could get a copy of these traffic engineering studies. And I got this little email back that said, "Ms. Bussey, we have no records responsive to your request. It's my understanding that because we were already under contract that we were grandfathered in from that requirement." So our city didn't do the basic due diligence to make sure that these cameras were placed properly throughout the city. So how did the city decide where to place the cameras? Well, Arlington Police Department put together a little chart saying these are the 10 top intersections with the most number of red light related accidents. Are these where the cameras were placed? No. You have 3 out of 10 got red light cameras in these intersections. So how did they decide? Well, they didn't decide. The red light camera company decided. They came in and they put in trial cameras in different intersections throughout the city, and then they said, here are where your #1 violations are occurring, 1 through 10. Take your pick. And so they picked the intersections that had the greatest number of violations, not because they were worried about your safety, but because they wanted more revenue. More violations equals more revenue, okay? So they didn't do a traffic engineering study that looked up all the aspects of the intersection. How much do you trust a private company that profits off of red light camera violations to be as concerned about safety as they are about their bottom line? This is a company, the red light camera industry has been fraught with fraud. They've been caught bribing elected officials. They've been caught holding on to violations and not giving them to the city. Let me explain that just a little bit. Whenever the camera goes off, that's considered an event. The event is sent to the red light camera company. The red light camera company reviews the event, and then they decide which events go to the city for further review. So if Jim Bob is working at the red light camera company in Ohio and he sees his cousin Joe Bob blow through a light in Arlington, he might decide not to send that particular ticket. Okay, that's a violation, and they're supposed to send a number of violations to the city to look over so they can send out the tickets. But they were caught red-handed, not sending as many violations as they could because they wanted to be able to give this mantra that it's about safety, that people were learning. People were changing their driving behaviors because of these cameras. You see how that's a little bit of a conflict. So, in fact, the city of Arlington had their own problems with transparency with this company when they did their own audit of their own red light camera program in 2011 and 2013. They said, sorry, okay, can I just finish that sentence?
Yes, go ahead, finish the
Okay.
sentence.
They said, yes, there is a problem because it's a private company, there's no auditing capabilities, there's no transparency, there's no oversight. So do you really trust them when they haven't even done their basic due diligence to make sure that they're making every intersection safer? I don't.
Thank you.
Tee up that white stick right there and just run it on top of it. Does this work? Okay, can you hear me, Ben? Yes. Okay, first of all, I want to thank you for having me out here, and I want to thank you for the ability to talk to you on this subject. I just have to start off by saying that the charter tasks me with certain things that I have to do. And
could you talk a little bit farther away from the microphone?
Sure, no problem. How's this? Is this better?
Much
okay. Essentially, in Article 7, Section 5, I'm tasked with the security, preservation, and protection of lives. That's kind of important to me. And the well-being and health of the inhabitants of the city of Arlington. And if you take that into consideration, let's pose a little scenario here. If I had an intersection with 100 accidents at this intersection on an annual basis, these are all Arlington accidents, by the way. These are all incidents from the city of Arlington. If I had this intersection and I had 100 accidents at this intersection, and I could install a widget at this intersection to reduce the accidents to 20, would you want me to install the widget? Is there anybody who doesn't want me to install the widget?
Ian's don't justify the means.
No,
Okay,
stop,
all right.
stop. You may raise your hand, you may not comment, please.
All right. How did we get to this situation? In 2004, the state passed Senate Bill 1184. 1184 allows us to have red light cameras in the state of Texas. It gives the authority to the cities. And then the city sent out a survey. They do it about every 2 years. And we got it back from you, the people. And essentially, your concerns were, one, speeders. 47% came back and said, stop speeders. Number two was red light camera runners, or excuse me, red light runners, and that was at 36%. And number three was the fact that there were break-ins in cars, burglaries, okay? So we took that information and we took it for action. And what we did was we went out and we did a survey of 50 intersections. And in the 50 intersections, we saw 1,295 accidents. Of the 1,295 accidents, there were 6 fatalities, 83 people were knocked unconscious, and there was 425 people that had to go to the hospital. Okay? So those were 50 of our worst intersections. So we pared it down. We had to, if we were going to put in the red light cameras, we had to get a baseline of what we were going to report over time. So we took the 14 most dangerous intersections at the time, and that gave us a baseline of 106 accidents. 56 were rear-end accidents. The rest were T-bones, okay? And then after that, we started reporting, and we have to report from a period of January 1st to June 30th. That's the period we report. There's a 5-page report that goes in on every camera, okay? And to have that baseline, we reported those cameras in 2013 at 27 accidents. 6 of those accidents were rear-end accidents, and in 2014, we reported 21 accidents, and 1 accident was a rear end of those 14 intersections. Okay, so I feel as though we've done our due diligence, and let me just say this in response to Ms. Bussey. It is against the law for us to, as a matter of fact, I think it's Transportation Code 707.13, okay? And it's against the law for us to give any part of any infraction or penalty that is given to the city. We pay a flat rate for each camera each month. There's no more tickets, more money. There's none of that, okay? We pay a flat rate of $4,700 a month per camera for 23 cameras. It's $110,000 a month. Okay, that's what we pay. Sorry.
You can finish the sentence, same as Faith.
Essentially, that's what we pay, and there's no, I want to say, performance initiative in any of the things that we do. The rest of the money goes directly to either the state or the city.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my comment a moment ago, the primary concern, they work better when they're kept apart. The primary concern with the various comments, no, this can be an easy setup in one form or another, and we're not going to do that. This is not a debate between the candidates here. This is simply a discussion of the various issues. And if somebody wants to see a show of hands, that's fine. But we're going to have to keep the comments to an absolute minimum. We cannot be able to do that.
I'm not commenting, I just want to ask a question. Did I hear $110,000 a month?
We'll ask them to go back over that in a moment. But right now, Faith, you have 1 minute to respond, 1 minute rebuttal on that, and then we're going to go back a minute apiece on this for a while.
Charlie mentioned the more argument. This is wrong. It's wrong to run red lights. Let me ask you. Stand up. Okay.
Yeah, they keep
Cheating? Okay. Yeah. Let me ask you, is there any other crime that you can think of where lowering the penalty is the more moral thing to do? You have a state law that makes red light running a criminal act. Okay, when a police officer pulls you over, you go to jail if you don't pay that ticket eventually. So with red light running, he said that the survey that they did in Arlington, where the bad drivers, that was something that was really important. We are losing our cops to these cameras. If we don't have these cops policing our intersections, then we are not going to be doing our due diligence with their safety. Because it's not just red light runners that make the intersections less safe. So let me give you an example. If a drug dealer, sorry, okay, that was it.
1 minute, Charlie.
Okay, this still works. Okay. I want to read to you an assertion that she just made about more revenue per the number of tickets for the company. This is Texas Transportation Code 707.003, a local authority that contracts for the administration and enforcement of the photographic traffic. Is this working? Hello? It's still working. Okay. A photographic traffic signal enforcement system may not agree to pay the contractor a specified percentage or a dollar amount from each civil penalty collected. And yes, if you do the math, 23 cameras times 4,700 a month.
Okay, Faith, you have 1 minute if you wish to go ahead, and before we go into questions. Now, you can stop this at any time you wish, but so many different points have been made. So we can do a point, counterpoint, if you wish. It's simply a 1 minute rebuttal time. So from that particular standpoint, would you like to have 1 minute more apiece? Would you like to
Yes.
get involved in some of the questions? You started to say something a moment ago, Faith, so you can take a minute.
I can actually finish that thought.
You can finish that thought.
Okay, I will go ahead and finish that thought. If you have a drug dealer that sells drugs at a corner to small children, and you decide that instead of having a police officer patrol that area, that you want to put in a camera, so that every time that drug dealer sells drugs to small children, it will take a picture of him, and it will send him a ticket in the mail, first class, that he may or may not get, that he may or may not have to pay, but there will be no binding consequence for his actions. That's exactly what these cameras are doing. They're lowering the threshold. They're lowering the penalty for something that is wrong, something that is dangerous. And so we need to be asking the questions of what can we do to make the intersection safer. That includes putting more police officers where these cameras are, instead of using them as force multipliers and saying, don't worry about these intersections, go and do something else that's more important. No, I'm sorry. If you have people that are drunk driving, that are being reckless, you need to have police officers in these intersections looking for that. So I think that that is the more moral argument. Thank you.
Charlie, you have 1 minute.
Thanks, sir. You just said that the city of Arlington reduced their accident rate by 80% on 14 of those intersections. I wanted to bring out to you that the population of Arlington grew by 16,000 from 2006 to present day. So although we grew, our drivers got better. And the only thing we really did was we put those cameras out there in the intersections. It's not just us. Fort Worth is down 70%. They went from 253 accidents to 75 accidents. So they're down 70%. Chicago is down 33%. There was a study done by the Institute for Highway Safety, and it stated that fatalities over the 99 cities that they did their study in is down 24% because of the red light cameras that were installed in these cities. How much more time do I have? I'll go ahead and kill. I got time.
Okay, Faith, would you like to have 1 minute?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay. The one question I would need to ask about that is why aren't the cameras working uniformly, and why did it take them 7 years to work? We've had them since 2007. It's 2015 now, right? So all this data that's being put on us, they haven't worked. They haven't worked uniformly across the board. Why are some intersections you're seeing traffic accidents go down, and some of them you're seeing them skyrocket? I'm telling you, it's because we didn't do our due diligence. We didn't do what was necessary to make the intersection safer in every way that we could. Instead, we put in the cameras, and we just said, we trust this company. We know that there's no oversight. We know that there's no accountability for it, but we trust them. So, that's it.
Charlie, you have 1 minute.
We know throughout cities, several cities, that if you install the red light cameras, accidents go down. It's not going to happen immediately because there's a learning curve. It has to happen over time. And we're in our 8th year now, and we're doing very well. Accidents are at a low. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to pull the cameras, because if we pull the cameras, we know what will happen. Houston pulled their cameras 4 years ago. Their fatalities were up 30%. Their accidents are up 117%. Kansas City went from 5,200 accidents up to 7,800 accidents, a 33% increase in accidents. We can learn from other cities. I can go on like this. There's Virginia Beach. They went up 400% in red light running in 1 year. So did Garland, went up 300% in red light running, and accidents went up 64%. If you pull these cameras, we can learn from the fact that
You can finish the sentence.
we can learn from the fact of the mistakes of other cities that they have made. We can learn from that. We don't have to pull these cameras simply because, I don't know what, violates our constitutional rights? No.
Thank
Yes.
Thank you.
No.
Yes.
Thank you.
You should have that.
No. Okay, we're going to get involved. Unless you want to respond to something, we're going to go to questions. If you want to. Okay. Let's make this the last one. Let's do 1 minute apiece, and then we're going to go into the Q&A that we have. All right?
Okay, he's talking about Houston and then having this big boom 4 years later. Houston is also the #1 city in the nation with population growth. So you can't tell me the higher population doesn't mean more cars on the road and more accidents, therefore. There's also been plenty of studies. There is a preponderance of evidence that suggests that there are alternatives to red light cameras that are more effective and that will be more cost effective and that won't violate our constitutional rights.
This work, okay. I've got 210 pages of a case law over here of constitutional cases that were given by scholars of the Constitution from the Supreme Court, 5th, 6th, 7th Circuit, and also the state laws. So consequently, if you want to ask me specifically about an amendment itself and how it applies and how the law applies to that amendment, I'll be more than happy to discuss that with you.
Gladly.
You were constitutional law.
Okay, some brief housekeeping announcements.
I didn't say it.
No, I'll stop. Some housekeeping announcements. Both of these people have agreed to stay for a time after this particular meeting is over and have agreed to talk to you if you have any individual questions you wish to ask of them. No set time has been made. We got all the time. Restaurant does not close until 12 midnight. We got lots of time. And they have a cash bar. This can go on for a while.
Don't encourage drinking.
Constable, I don't understand.
Got plenty of iced tea in the back.
They thought that flask I've seen that was iced tea. We can do that without any trouble. Okay, question number 1, and you're going to again have 1 minute to respond if you would. In going over these questions, both on the email and the ones that are coming up now, the original idea was to ask 1 pro, 1 con question. It's not working out that way. These questions can in fact be asked of either one, so we're simply going to alternate here. Faith started first, so the first question here goes to Charlie, and then each one gets 1 minute, and then the next question will go to Faith. We'll bounce back and forth. Charlie, you get the first one. Who decided which intersections the cameras would be placed, and what was the criteria for that decision?
I think I kind of answered that question when we had to do our 18-month due diligence on where we wanted to place the cameras, because we studied the 50 most dangerous intersections in the city of Arlington. And we decided on 14 of the most dangerous intersections that gave us those 106 accidents. And what we did, okay, those were the original 14, and that's we've taken 2 away from the original 14 and put 2 more in. But the original 14 are the ones that we're reporting on each and every year, okay, except for those 2 that we replaced. We tried to look at the accidents and get a good response as to what's happening in our streets each and every year, so that we get a good, accurate reporting. It's not something that there's all kinds of different factors that go into it, as far as, you know, times of the day and flow and count of cars and the amount of traffic that goes in there, but also it's the accidents that occur at those particular intersections. And our police department is the one that made those decisions.
Okay, Faith, you want me to read your question again? Who decided which intersections the cameras would be placed, and what was the criteria?
The camera company decided where the cameras are going to be placed. I showed you, this is the list that the police department put out of the 10 most dangerous intersections in Arlington, with accidents resulting from red light related incidents, I'm sorry. So he can say that there's other criteria. There really wasn't. There's only 3 of these intersections that have cameras currently. And if you remove 2 of the cameras, why in the world would you ever remove cameras if it's for safety? If you have the top 14 most dangerous intersections, you would never remove them if it's for safety. But if it's for revenue, you can remove them.
Very good.
Okay. Now, as you do this, some of these questions are being answered and I'm concentrating on other items, so some of this may be a little bit on the redundant side. And Faith, you'll go with this one first. Is it costing the city taxpayer any money to pay for the cameras by any description?
If you pay taxes, it's costing you money.
Charlie, for time?
$110,000 a month is budgeted through the general fund, okay? The money that comes in is far superior to the amount of money that goes out. So there's an extra $2.1 million that comes into the city that we pay 23 police officers with that particular amount of funds. Like I said, we budgeted through the general fund, and then we pay the police officers. We've increased our police force, 9 to the DUI task force, and then there was 13 or 14 more that went to 2 sergeants and 12 patrolmen, and they go out and we put them on jobs like going out to get speeders and solving that problem that was on our survey that you gave back to us. So what we've done is we've accomplished 23 more officers on the force, and we haven't raised your taxes $1.
Okay, Charlie, you'll get the first question on this next one, please. Now, you covered part of this earlier, but apparently they're looking for percentage factors. Of the 19 intersections where the cameras are in place, if they are at the most affected intersections, then why aren't they affecting the accident rate uniformly?
Because not every corner is the same. Faith asked just a little while ago that why we would take cameras out of a specific intersection. And the reason being is because a couple of those intersections have been redesigned, okay? And with the redesign of those intersections, it makes the putting of the camera in a specific area untenable, okay? So it makes the intersection, after it's been redesigned, a place where we can't put the camera and the approach at the proper spot to get the sensing right. And so that's the reason that the 2 intersections were removed.
Can I ask him to clarify something on that?
And he helped.
Yes.
Okay, no, just a minute. Because previously, the rule was that the people involved were not to discuss anything in this particular matter. It was not a debate. If it is a point, wait a minute. If it is a point of clarification that you do not understand, go ahead. But he reserves that same right to come back if you wish. Now, let's not do this on a regular basis. I do not want a head-butting contest. Go ahead.
Can you repeat the question?
We got to find it first. Uniformly, why aren't the accident rates reduced uniformly?
Okay. Were you saying that the 2 cameras that you took out were because of engineering that had been done in the intersections,
Right.
not because the accident rate had dropped? Did the accident rate go up or down afterward? Do you know?
I don't know, the camera was removed.
You can still measure the
Prior.
Okay, so the answer to that question, why they don't work uniformly, is because they're inanimate objects. And they don't jump out at people, they don't become the brave little toaster and say, stop. know the answer.
Okay, thank you. Okay, but Faith, you'll get the first question this next time around. Under the current contract between the City of Arlington and ATS, the city has a 90-day opt-out clause that can be exercised at any time. Both parties agreed to do this. Why would ATS want to sue the City of Arlington over this election under the guise of a private citizen?
My personal belief on this is that because there is a statewide ban coming up, if the domino falls here in Arlington, it falls statewide, and they can't let that happen.
Charlie, 1 minute.
ATS is suing the city of Arlington because they're a company. Companies do one thing. They make money. They make profits. You show me a company that, no, they don't make profits?
No, I'm saying,
No, Kelly.
he asked me,
It's fair for one.
They make profits. That is what companies do. If you work for a company, you would want them to make a profit so that you could have your job, buy your house, send your kids to school. That's what a capitalist system does. We, on the other hand, are a government. We are not out for a profit. We have to look at what is safe for our citizens. I abstained from the vote because I didn't want my name to be on a no vote for the election and then on a yes vote for something that is going to harm the people of Arlington. I did not want my name there, and that's why I abstained.
I just feel so much.
Okay, Charlie, you have the next question. Why is it okay to allow a private company to take my picture and hold me responsible for a monetary fine when they are not an elected body? And how do they have any authority to collect for a violation?
There's about 4 or 5 questions there, buddy.
I'm just the messenger, Charlie.
Okay, we're going to talk about essentially privacy here. You're talking about why a camera can take your picture. And essentially the Supreme Court has said that driving is a regulated activity and it's on a public road. Okay? So there's no expectation of privacy in public. That's why you cannot urinate in the street. Okay? Because it is public. You have to go someplace private. All right? They also said that nobody has a fundamental right to run a red light or avoid being seen by a camera on a public street. The fact that liability through the use of photographs taken by automatic cameras rather than tickets from an absent officer does not alter the constitutionality of the procedure available to the alleged red light violators. That's the Supreme Court of the United States.
Yes. Why is it okay to allow a private company to take my picture and hold me responsible for a monetary fine when they are not an elected body? And how do they have the authority to collect for a violation?
Florida State Supreme Court actually just ruled last year that the private company can't determine whether or not you're guilty of a crime. It is unconstitutional. Why would it be constitutional if you were assumed liable to the city for a fine and have to prove yourself to be innocent? There's no way a person can get a trial by jury for a camera. The law is written to say that if you don't receive their notice in the first class mail, which is not a good way to receive mail, that this is an admission of liability and you waive your right to an appeal. It denies us equal protection under the law when the same act of running a red light is subject to 2 entirely different justice systems. One is civil, one is criminal. And there is where a wrongfully accused person by a camera doesn't have the same right and protections as someone given a ticket by a police officer. So I don't believe that they have a right to do that. And that's why I think that they have been banned in so many states, because they have been found unconstitutional, and I think the same thing's going to happen here in Texas.
Okay, Faith, you have the next question, please. Why are there no lights in the entertainment district? So many. You're going to read
Why are
this
there
the
no
way it was
cameras in
written.
entertainment?
No, there's no name on this particular question. So many drunk drivers get arrested. Well, have you been active over there, David, in the entertainment district? Should you do that? Okay. So many drivers get arrested there and cause near wrecks. Where is the safety?
That's a really good question. I don't know why there aren't any cameras in the entertainment district. That's the honest truth. I have no idea. You would think that there would be more money there. You would think they'd be able to get more money there, but maybe they just didn't want to make all the people angry that come over to the Cowboy Stadium and spend money in our city. Instead, they'd rather put them in areas where they'll just make us angry because we live here and we can't go anywhere.
Charlie, you have 1 minute when you're ready.
360 and Six Flags Drive. That's the answer to my question.
One.
That's where the camera is.
One.
Around the corner. Okay.
Yeah, that's just crazy.
I need to reword this one a little bit. Let's see, Charlie, you get the first one here. Do you think decriminalizing red light running?
Aren't they gonna change that? Aren't they gonna change that when they build a new freeway?
No, no more, please. No questions from the audience, please. We're not going to go with that one. Well, we're not going to go with that one. Okay, Charlie, let's repeat one. Here's an obvious repeat. How do the cameras make an intersection safer than the intersections without them? Point being, you can and cannot see the cameras. You do not always know they are there. How do the cameras make an intersection safer than the intersections without them?
By that sign right behind you.
Can't see it sometimes.
You can see that sign as you approach the intersection, and it will say that it is a red light photo enforced intersection. And you can go ahead and, it trains me. After, I got 2 tickets already, okay, by right turns. And I paid my tickets. I paid my tickets because it was the right thing to do. The society that we have now, they seem to be only able to do the things that they have to do and not the things that they should do. And I feel as though that if we break the law, especially if I'm caught on video breaking the law, I'll pay my ticket. I broke the law. Right, Woody?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Faith, before you go, we have a lot of talking in the back. And in this particular room, that is going to drown out some of what is being said. May I request, please, that you give these speakers the courtesy of quiet in the room and simply allow them to express an individual opinion here. And you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Okay. You say you break the law and that you pay your tickets because it's the right thing to do. You have decriminalized running red light cameras. You have essentially said that it is not as important as somebody who's drunk driving, who's somebody gets caught by a cop and stopped and gets a ticket and then goes to jail if they don't pay it. So I actually don't remember what the question was because I know that had nothing to do with it. I just wanted to respond to that part.
How do the cameras make an intersection safer than the intersections without them?
They don't. And we need to do our due diligence to make sure. One of the reasons that we started this petition drive was not so that we could just get rid of the cameras. It was so we could force the city to do what's necessary to make every intersection in Arlington safer, because there are things that we can do to make every intersection safer. And they have been proven. There have been studies that have been done that show that they are more effective than cameras could ever be.
Okay, Faith, you get the next question, which apparently came from Robert Rivera. Is that right, Robert? Did you send up a question? No. You're disavowing the next question before it's asked. Warren asked this question. He's standing next to you. Yeah, baby. And you get the first of this time. Why do you feel that the city council did not want to discuss this issue when Robert Rivera originally brought it up?
because there was no political pressure to talk about it at the time. We didn't have 11,405 people who had signed a petition saying that we want this talked about. We wouldn't be having this debate if we hadn't done the petition drive and said this is something we want to talk about. So the city council had no political pressure, and now they have a lot of political pressure, and they're going to talk about it because we the people have a right to have our voice heard.
Well, Robert has a free will to take whatever position he'd like. And if he'd like to put that particular item on the agenda, okay, we would be more than, that's how stuff is done. We put it in the agenda and then we discuss it in an open session, work session. That's how things are done. And anyway, the red light cameras were not put on the agenda and therefore we didn't discuss it. That's the answer to that question.
Can I have like 5 seconds?
Okay, each of you, yes, go ahead and take 15 seconds and then he'll have the same response.
The way that works to get something on the agenda for the work sessions, you have to have a second. Robert tried to bring it up more than once. There was no second because nobody wanted to talk about it.
Go ahead and speak to that. You don't need a second, okay? You just go over and say, hey, I'd like a new agenda item put on the agenda, and this mayor says, okay, fine. And we don't move and we don't second new agenda items. Thank you.
All right.
Can I ask a question?
All right.
Robert, is that true, Robert?
I'm going to defer to the other councilman.
It's election time. You don't want to grandstand somewhere along the line? You don't want to preach from back there?
It's true you don't need a second.
Well, we have someone who signed this particular one, Gary Brizendine. All right. If it is acceptable to Gary, if it is acceptable to roll a stoplight triggering a camera, are there other laws we should ignore? Gary, I do not understand your question.
Well, it seems to be, from the folks I've talked to, you seem to feel that these cameras are not legal. Or
They're not.
if they are,
Oh, I see what you're
you don't
referring
like
to.
the legality.
Okay.
Are there other laws, if you roll a stoplight and it clicks and
Okay,
you get a
that's-
ticket, what other laws would you
that's
like to
good.
ignore?
I wanted to clarify that because you're the only one so far that had the nerve to sign the card. No one else has done that. Who's supposed to go first this time? I lost track. I charted this as you. If it is acceptable to roll a stoplight triggering a camera, are there other laws we should ignore?
Well, I paid $150, said it wasn't acceptable, okay? And I think that's your point, Gary, and Mark Wandell, who is a gentleman down in Florida, and they established the Mark Wandell Act in Florida. He was killed on somebody that rolled around a right turn and ran right into him and killed him. So anyway, it is not legal to not stop and make a right turn. It is not legal to do that. Nice hand.
Okay, Faith, you have 1 minute.
You're right, it's not legal to make a right turn on a red without stopping. It's not legal to run a red light. You would have a greater penalty if a police officer pulled you over than you would if you got caught by a red light camera. And we need those cops in our intersections. Patrolling, policing, stopping bad behavior, stopping bad drivers who are drunk, who are going to plow into somebody. And yeah, you have a follow-up to your question?
Well, you said
No follow-ups. Gary, I cannot. It would not be fair to the others. No more.
Excuse me, I have a question.
No more. We cannot do that. All right, in the interest of time, it is 8:15, and we always adjourn between 8:15 and 8:30. Now, knowing the importance of this, we have to stick to our timetable. We've always done that. We're going to do it now. I'm going to ask them one more question each, and then they'll each have a 2-minute closing statement. At that time, please do not leave. Please retain your seats. Ann Coker has a couple of closing statements to make, a couple of announcements, and then that will be all. Now, I had... Okay. There were several questions here that I wanted to end up going to, and there are several questions on here concerning money. But who paid for this study in the first place? Did the taxpayers pay for this, or did it come out of some private funding somewhere along the line? And again, I've lost track. Which one of you goes first? Faith, I think.
What study are you talking about?
I do not know. Was that your question, Bill Eastman? I do not know who asked that question. There's no name on there. And I do not know what study. Charlie, do you know what study they're referring to?
I think they're probably considering the 18-month due diligence that we had to do before we installed the cameras. There was a study that we had to do for 18 months, and that was a study that took into consideration accident rates at 50 of the intersections, so that we could determine which 14 intersections we wanted to put the red light cameras at. The company had no input, as they could care less where we put the red light cameras. They don't get any more money, they don't get any input, they don't get anything. So the bottom line is they get their money, and then we decide where we want to put the red light cameras.
Okay, Faith.
I have no idea what study they're talking about. For a traffic engineering study, there wasn't one done, not a single one for any of the intersections that have red light cameras in them right now. That would have been paid for by the city, by your tax dollars, and it probably would have been worth it to have that information. There's other studies that have been done. Rice University did a study in Houston talking about how their red light camera program was actually a detriment to safety and how it decreased safety. But other than that, I have no idea what other studies you'd be talking about.
Okay. There are a multitude of good questions here. If your question was not asked, my personal apologies. I tried to pick out what appeared to be the better questions, the one of more interest, would like to go through more of them, and simply did not. In this particular case, you have 2 minutes worth of closing statements. And you started the original opening statements, so Charlie, you have 2 minutes worth of closing statements. You will go first, please.
Okay, thank you. And thank you again for having me this evening. I really do appreciate the opportunity to be able to discuss this. A lot of people think that because I got a red light ticket, I'm a victim. And if you think that you're a victim because you got a ticket, you're wrong. The victims are the individuals that are hit by those people running red lights. Mrs. Kalansky, you ever heard of her? Kalansky. She was driving her pickup truck at 72 miles an hour down Cooper Street one night when she came up on Green Oaks Avenue, and a guy by the name of Mr. Clark pulled out in front of her on a green light, and she T-boned him, killed him immediately, and put the other man in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. They were both 21 years old. Okay? These are the victims. And if you think you're a victim because you got a red light camera, your moral compass isn't pointing towards true north.
Oh my God.
Really.
That's good.
67% of the people that are killed are not the ones running the red light. Those are the true victims. If the red light cameras are removed, accidents will go up. We don't have to go back in time to Wally and the Beaver days, to where we have a good Samaritan that has to stop to tell us, or to tell the police officer what actually happened in that intersection. We don't have to do that. This is 2015. We have the technology. And I have a story to tell you about a gentleman who was killed at Parkland Hospital, but the red light camera exonerated the individual that had a green light, and he was driving the van. And if he hadn't had that red light camera there, he would have had a lawsuit against him, lost his job, and his entire family would have lost their sustenance, and he would have probably gone to jail. So the red light camera did its work at that particular intersection.
Faith, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you all very much for coming out tonight. My question is, how can you claim the moral high ground when you're advocating for police officers to stay away from intersections instead of interacting with people? How can you claim the moral high ground when you are advocating for a lesser penalty that at this time is not enforceable at all? How can you claim the moral high ground when you are advocating for more government oversight and less personal responsibility? You can't. Even if the red light cameras eliminated all red light related accidents, the city would still be ignoring the greater problem. We are asking the city to look at the greater problem. And we are not wanting to be ignorant of basic safety standards for intersections. We don't want to ignore that. And just like they've been ignoring basic road repair in poor neighborhoods for years, we don't want just a few intersections to be the ones getting all the safety. We want everyone to be safe. So millions of dollars are taken out of this local economy and you haven't changed a thing. So let's get rid of these cameras so that we can force our city council to do the right thing. If anybody would like to donate money or time to help us get rid of these things, please come talk to myself or Kelly Cannon. Write us a check, Citizens for Better Arlington. We'll take it. And thank you all so much for coming.
That worked out really well. Had a couple of questions concerning tonight's program. This is 100% Ann Coker's idea. This worked out really well. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to Charlie Parker and to Faith Bussey for participating.
Thanks again, everyone. Come out on this cold night. I hope this heated you up and warmed you up a little bit. It was a great discussion. I want to thank our participants. They were great, really. Thank you. I learned a lot, and I hope that this is a service that we do for our community, and I hope it was informative. And if you have, they're going to be around, so if you have any other questions. Next month, City Council Forum, Candidate Forum, and Mayoral Candidate Forum.
Robert, you coming next month?
Robert is in a contested race in the deadline Friday. Okay, so there should be some interesting races coming up. Also, I'd like to end this evening here again in dedication to our Cal Walters that was unfortunately killed in a tragic accident in January. When she was 19 years old, the reason that she is just such a loss for this community and to the country, the world as a whole, is some of the things that she wrote. And I'm going to read a quote from an essay that she wrote that I happened to find that she wrote when she was 19 years old. This was written on January 4th. She was coming back from a party or a picnic with her family. And her father is here tonight too, by the way, and we'll thank him for being here. Sometimes we get so caught up in what is going on in political issues of the day that sometimes we forget to be grateful that we can get caught up. And realize that one person with a strong voice over time can change the landscape of our country. This is really hard for me to read. So, coming out of the 4th of July weekend and back into the insanity that is local, state, national, and international politics, just remember that you are an American, and that makes you mighty. Yeah. Words from a 19-year-old. And that's the reason we do miss her. And that's the reason the chair is dedicated to her.
You know, Ann, it just tells you out of the mouths of babes sometimes.
And that you can affect change, that one person can make a difference.
I had an announcement, but I just now remembered it.
You were one of the reasons we had this program.